Hi there, welcome to the next episode of Voice AI podcast, where we discuss the future of voice AI. We are still at CCW, and this is like part of the series we do at CCW. I'm super excited today to host James Bednar, who is the Vice President of Products and Innovations at TTEC. James.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So I'm JB. I lead innovation and product at TTEC. And for those of you that don't know TTEC, we're a CX delivery company. We do both BPO and support services as well as technology. We're one of the main players in the space with more than 60,000 associates around the world.
Wow, 60,000. All right. So JB, you're looking around at the expo, like anything interesting that you have seen, like anything new that surprised you this year?
I've been coming to CCW for a long time. Probably close to maybe 2 decades now, probably since the beginning. And it's amazing to see every year this shift from people-based services to technology. And I think a year ago, 2 years ago, post-COVID, tech sort of flipped to be the more dominant part of it. And walking around today, it's such a huge part of the conversation.
Yeah, I just remember what my discussion was yesterday. So we were talking that some time ago, I think it was during the COVID time, empathy was like number one topic. Like anyone we would talk to, like empathy was coming up as an important topic, right? And then like the last couple of years where LLMs came around, it seems like the topic has changed a bit. Discussion has changed a bit around that. But I know like you keep thinking about empathy a lot in the space, right? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, how, like when you like historically, when that discussion changes? What are the spikes and then like ups and downs around discussion?
Yeah, it's a great topic. I mean, empathy and human connection has always been a big part of the contact center experience. And when you look at doing this at scale across a lot of different countries, cultural differences, cultural awareness, soft skills training, these are always sort of part of delivery. I think there have been a number of more academic studies looking at the impact of empathy on customer experience, NPS and CSAT. And generally, for a long time, they always showed this idea of there's a perfectly positive correlation between, empathy and experience, which makes sense, right? As a customer, you want to feel valued, you want to feel heard. So it's always sort of been a core part of it. But I think post-COVID, there have been a lot of expectation changes by consumers. I think everybody got a little bit more impatient during COVID. I think with the advancements in automation, there's more of a desire for now immediacy versus relationship. So it's interesting to see that dynamic had changed a bit either way. And now with the introduction of voice AI and AI automation more broadly, what is the role of empathy within those kinds of experiences?
Yes. Can we go a bit deeper on like what do you mean like now? How did the expectation change from the customer? Like they just want to get their issue resolved very fast. Is that what?
Yeah, I think we saw service delivery fall off pretty dramatically through COVID. I think.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So what happened was everybody was exposed to a lot of maybe poor experience, and I think that created a lot of impatience just in people generally. So their expectations sort of started going up, or their tolerance for lower quality delivery went down quite a bit.
Well, I mean, the conversation right now with voice AI and its impact on the industry is like the number one like important conversation, I guess, that's happening. And as part of that conversation, like empathy comes a lot, right? As an important topic, such as like, will AI have an empathy? Does it have it now? Can it, like, if we are thinking that it's going to be predominant, in the industry, like the AI is going to be predominant, Does it actually make sense? Because humans have empathy. So like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a really challenging topic. When you talk to people within the BPO side of the industry, right? CX delivery for folks that are not part of the industry. We love to hold on to this fact that empathy is sort of this uniquely human thing, and AI won't ever deliver empathy. So AI's role in customer care more broadly will always be limited because of this empathy gap.
Mm.
And I'm not so sure that's the case anymore. When you look at some of some of the hottest growing use cases of voice AI, I mean, outside of the CX space, you look at the crazy growth of platforms like character AI, where younger generations, kids are engaging, having conversations with with these, virtual avatars back and forth, and their personal conversations. I think, Sam Altman said something the other day about what one of the most dominant use cases that surprised him was around users of ChatGPT. And it was that they're finding that younger generations are asking ChatGPT to weigh in on life decisions pretty significantly, probably more so than their parents. Now, you could probably be totally terrified by that idea, but if we're seeing younger generations put their trust in the technology and the interactions to that extent, are the foundations there for people to be ready for AI to have empathy?
Can you define empathy in the context of like CX, right?
Empathy in the context of CX, that's a great one. So there's three components of empathy. And why I'm so passionate about this, if you're wondering, just a little bit of backstory.
Okay.
In school, in college, I studied cognitive science. Research on emotion was one of my sort of passion areas. I was planning to go for a PhD in cognitive neuroscience, focusing on emotion. And I don't know, I got sucked up into the CX industry, which, believe it or not, has a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So empathy has three main components, right? Our ability to understand somebody else's emotional state. Typically, it's like today we would call it like emotional intelligence. Somebody has emotional intelligence. The second thing is an empathetic compassion, meaning me as a human seeing an emotional state in somebody else and having a desire to help them fix that is a big part of empathy. And the third part, which is maybe not so relevant within CX, is this idea of affective empathy. And what affective empathy is I see you being sad, so I feel sad, or I see you crying or laughing, so I'm laughing. And if you've ever laughed because somebody else has laughed like contagiously, that's affective empathy. So all those three things together make empathy. But really, it's those first two: ability to understand someone else's emotion and have a desire to act on that. That's a big part of what empathy is.
Very, very interesting. So like if you look at ChatGPT these days, the first part, I'm not sure it's able to do yet. I mean, it can understand context, it can understand the language. If you tune it to like, hey, try to sort of extract the emotions, it will do, but not. I mean, at least in the voice space, probably not, right? There is no technology that extracts it as good. Like,
so the parallel I'm going to bring into that from the contact center world is the idea of quality assurance is big, and quality assurance in the contact center world is, to the large part, even still today, is people listening to phone calls with a scoring sheet where they are going through a rubric, a matrix, saying, was the agent empathetic? Yes, no, check, no. Did they express concern? Yes, no, check. So when you look at empathy from that lens, yeah, we're seeing with a lot of the new conversational analytics platforms, the ability to look at emotion and sentiment more objectively. And having been in this industry 30 years now, getting consistency between two human reviewers is incredibly difficult. So the ability to do it consistently has a lot of value. And what we're seeing is maybe AI is not perfect at it yet, but it certainly has better consistency,
of course,
than a group of humans doing it.
Very interesting. So, okay. So the other part of, I mean, as actually, this is a question. Is I'm not that passionate about that topic, but I'm starting to get. This is very interesting, right? Um, how big is trust in terms of the important, like trust building from the empathy perspective, right? And like the reason why these folks are like sharing their life, or asking ChatGPT for life advice is also because the advice they are getting is probably interesting and they start to trust it, right? I mean, they probably shouldn't right now, but entirely trust. But so it's smart. Like they are talking to AI. It's smart.
Mhm.
So how big is trust in the empathy?
I think what we're starting to realize now is it's a huge part of empathy, and it's a huge part of that interaction. And there have been some more recent studies. There was a great study from the National Bureau of Economic Research with Uber that looked at customer service interactions and things like apologies, saying sorry versus just fixing the problem. And what they sort of found, and I think there's been a few other studies and research done into this, is that when empathy and apologies like that are not genuine, it's actually completely counterproductive. And when you look at the whole way we've worked in the contact center for 30 years, we've kind of like forced empathy into these interactions. We forced empathy into the training. We're QA scoring people.
Like say this word.
Yeah, like almost you have to do this.
empathetic.
You have to be, you have to be empathetic on every interaction. And what that means is you have to communicate in a certain way. And what we're seeing now is it's almost completely counterproductive, that being ungenuinely empathetic is worse than not being empathetic at all.
Because at the end of the day, like when someone calls into like customer service, they want their issue to be resolved, right? Like that's their main thing. It's not like if my issue is not resolved. I mean, of course, if it's not resolved and someone is genuinely apologizes, that smoothens things a bit. But at the end of the day, like my issue wasn't resolved, and so there is that friction, right?
Yeah,
that stays. Yeah.
And I think that's the big debate, is this balance between action and empathy, and what is actually more important at the end of the day. And when what we're seeing, like if you look at that post-COVID trend of I want immediacy of resolution, and then you look at what AI can possibly deliver in terms of immediacy of resolution, is it now that consumers would just prefer to interact with an AI because they'll get resolution faster, even if there isn't empathy in that interaction? Or is there enough empathy in that interaction to do the same thing?
Yeah, I love the framing. This was very insightful. Okay, James, like anything that you see from that perspective in the new like technology in the expo.
No, not yet. We've been chatting with a few folks, and I think one of the really interesting topics that someone had brought up to me is, okay, so do we need a new KPI within our industry, which is, can we understand the genuineness or the effectiveness of empathy as a metric, and how would we even score that? What would it look like? So it's got us thinking now that, hey, maybe this is something that we need to take a look at.
Okay. Well, this was like super insightful. Thanks so much, James, for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And we have been trying to schedule this for a while, right?
Yeah, we have.
I'm very happy.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.